Yes, this morning we looked into the way sexual assault cases are handled by the United States Air Force Academy. We spoke to more than a dozen current and former cadets. Some of them shared their stories yesterday in part 1 of our series.
I was sexually assaulted my freshman year, and the sexual harassment I endured eventually made me leave.
I was terrified of reporting because I've heard of things that happen to people. And it did happen to me, so it's not horror stories.
Do you regret reporting the assault?
No, I regret it every day. I regret it every day because of everything that came after.
Now, in the second part of our investigation, the Academy's former top official on sexual assault reveals troubling information about the way she says cases are handled. And the Academy is now responding to our reporting. Is the Air Force Academy supportive of those who report sexual assault?
I would have to say absolutely not. No.
Teresa Beasley worked with sexual assault survivors for 3 decades, 10 of those years as the United States Air Force Academy's top official on sexual assault prevention and response.
I think deep down they really don't believe that sexual assaults are happening. I think they're minimizing the severity of them.
Do you believe there are some commanders at the Air Force Academy who believe that cadets are making up sexual assault charges?
Absolutely. They would say it in words such as, I find it interesting the timing of this report, or I am just wondering why this cadet hasn't come forward sooner with this assault.
Beasley also told us she believes the Academy has covered up the circumstances surrounding 2 violent attacks on female cadets that occurred in December 2014 and January 2015 on the public running and biking trail behind the Academy, the details of which have not been reported until now. CBS News has learned that 2 attacks on Falcon Trail behind the Air Force Academy occurred.
Yes.
Were these attacks sexual assaults?
Yes. Both were hit in the head, hard enough to each receive a concussion. Both were hit from behind somehow. They couldn't see anyone coming.
Sources tell CBS News both cadets were administered rape kits at local hospitals. But Beasley says both cases were prematurely closed by the Air Force's Office of Special Investigations Agents, or OSI. What happened?
They, meaning OSI, told me that they didn't believe her, that they think it was a date that went wrong. And I said, how did she get hit in the head? And they said, well, she'll have to tell you that. And somehow they never investigated it. About a month later, we had a second incident. She wasn't believed either. They said she was making it up, and when I asked why they said that this was OSI, they said because her timelines don't match.
More than a dozen current and former cadets told CBS News they've experienced retaliation by their peers and their military leadership for reporting sexual assaults to the Academy. That's why some victims are afraid to sign this form. It's called a 2910, which the Academy uses to document assaults. CBS News has obtained Defense Department memos that confirm at least 16 cases were deleted for academic year 2014 to 2015 for not having a signed 2910. Teresa Beasley believes those cases should have been counted by the Air Force Academy, which she says would have resulted in a record number of cases that year.
They were actual reports. These were victims that had come in and told their story and had received help, had assigned victim advocates, had been referred for medical counseling. They were actual victims. But they did not want to sign a 2910 because they were afraid someone would find out.
Do you believe they removed those cases for a reason other than they didn't have that specific form signed?
Yes.
And what was that reason?
I believe they wanted to get that number down because it was the highest we'd ever had. I was reprimanded, and they tried to fire me for what they said was intentionally overinflating the numbers.
Do you believe you were retaliated against?
I absolutely was.
Beasley retired amid threats that the Academy intended to fire her. 2 weeks ago, the Academy released a scathing 560-page report of investigation into the office Beasley led and accused her of, quote, failing to effectively manage staff, spreading rumors, and that her office's lack of competency jeopardized victim care. But Beasley, as well as some former colleagues and cadets who spoke with CBS News, believe the Academy has scapegoated her for standing up to leadership on behalf of sexual assault survivors.
You have to stand up to people who mistreat others and who oppress others. And I did that, and they didn't like it.
Now, the superintendent in charge of the academy at the time of these allegations was Lieutenant General Michelle Johnson. She provided us this following statement. She says, quote, "When members in the Sexual Assault Prevention and Response Office demonstrated they were not up to that task, we immediately initiated an investigation, took actions appropriate to the findings, and worked tirelessly to ensure victims received the care they deserved." Now, as for those rapes we reported that were on that trail, Johnson says that the U.S. Air Force Academy and law enforcement investigated both those trail allegations exhaustively for several months. Later in our broadcast, we're going to talk to the Air Force Academy's new superintendent. Lieutenant General Jay Silveria is here. He's here in Studio 57, has joined us from Colorado Springs to respond to these allegations and what the Academy is doing in the days and years ahead. That's ahead here on CBS This Morning.